The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning and hello everyone, and thanks for joining today's webinar on automatic price list upload. Our company is called PIX and our software is called DocLIb, which is short for Document Library. My name's Dave Stevens and I'm Vice President of Sales for PIX. As a new attendee this year at TUG, we had the pleasure of speaking with some of you, and we learned a couple of things that might be some what we call gaps or differentiators, and that's what we were looking to maybe present to you all here this morning. While some of you may have some software that overlaps with the other existing vendors, i.e. there's some software that's similar to ours, again, what we wanted to show today was what I learned at a luncheon conversation out at TUG. And at that conversation, I had the pleasure of sitting with a group of electrical distributors. And within that group, it was mentioned by a couple of different companies that there's some price updated solutions that were needed, meaning prices were coming in for the thousands of SKUs that you all have, and there was maybe some management and or updating of that pricing that was needed when it was coming in, say, via Excel files or maybe PDFs. So that's actually the solution that we were looking to present today within the demo section of the webinar. Hold on, let me just go to another slide here. The agenda today, again, my part is very short. Again, just to overview a little bit more of who is PIX and what are some of the DocLIb solutions. Also joining me today is Rich Rosenthal. Rich is a senior application consultant, and Rich is going to help run the demo today. What I wanted to point out, I know when you've got a lot of folks on webinars, sometimes it's hard to field questions towards the end with Q&A. We thought it might be most helpful and beneficial to you all. Two things. If you could kindly either submit questions maybe in the chat section, that's in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or again at the end I'll show an email if you want to simply just get an email back to me. What we'll do is we'll answer all the questions, we'll share those questions, and then send obviously the responses out to each of you that attended today. So, thanks so much for your attending today, and again, thanks for your feedback on that. With regard to DocLIb, while again we're a little bit newer to attending TUG and Infor and the folks out in San Antonio, we certainly aren't a new company. We're actually 20 years old. Started in 1995, and this particular software solution we had released back in 2001. Very high level as a document management and business process solution, we happen to be built and sit on a Progress open edge platform. We're actually implemented across 11 countries. Some of those solutions include simple document scan and store, can do also AP automation. We also are offering solutions and used at many customer sites for customer purchase order processing. And lastly, certainly not least, we did launch a mobile expense application that folks can use either on Androids and or iPhones. Again, kind of this graphical look, again, staying at a high level, we as an enterprise document and business process management, specifically some of those components, and you'll see some of it today, but you're going to see some intelligent document capture, you're going to see email connecting and alerts and routing. Again, that all sits up top within business processes and then workflows underneath. Again, we'll show an example of a workflow, and that's a foundation for some of the actual solutions that we offer. Now, what's nice about that, again, is that all sits in a secure document database, that Open Edge Progress database, and again, people like the audit history and the version control within the document management. So again, just kind of an over high-arching look at the pieces within the solution. If we kind of go down a little bit more under the hood of the solution, and again, staying a little bit high, but a little bit more into the components that sit underneath, specifically under document management, again, we're storing key documents, structured documents. We can index those documents for search. Again, sitting on a secure database, you've got version control, check in, check out, and again, we've got a DocLIb piece. Under the intelligent document capture, again, any type of document, any type of format, whether it's electronic, whether it's paper, could be packing slips, bill of ladings, that's getting down into specifics. With regard to the auto and self-learning, what happens there is when we get into the scanning part and the OCR part, once it sees documents once, the next time it sees a similar document, it's learned from that document. So again, you'll see some of that within the solution. I won't go too much more of that drill down, but that's a very nice piece on that auto and self-learning piece. Again, we can scan from any device. The items then sit or can be drag and dropped into hot folders. Again, that's all under the document intelligent capture. And then kind of lastly here under the workflow automation and approvals, again, routing documents, you can have approvals. Even on that routing, if you've got multiple people on a team, say someone's off in queues, if one person's handled the queue, the other person wouldn't double handle. So again, the system lets you know that. And you've got user-defined rules. So again, with our software, we do a license that can be used by anyone, but via permissions, you can assign license capability within the permissions of the license. And again, audit trail, which we touched on before. The purpose of this screen here, again, while this is a basic workflow, what it shows is just a nice quick look of what a configurable workflow in DocLIb looks like. And again, kind of an underlying foundation. The nice thing is if we can configure the workflow, we can basically offer a solution out to you, and that kind of leads in heading over to the demo. And I'm going to turn this portion of it now over to Rich, and he's going to show kind of the demo that sits on top of this workflow, which was the workflow we created for the Priceless upload. So at this point, let me go ahead and turn it over to Rich, and we'll go ahead and enter into the demo portion.
Okay, well, thanks, Dave, and thanks again, everyone, for attending our webinar today. I'm going to take you through an example, as David had mentioned, where DocLIb could be utilized to process manual price lists that you may be receiving from your suppliers. And by manual price lists, what I mean, these are documents that is a listing of items that you're obtaining from your supplier, either via a PDF document that's emailed to you or faxed to you or what have you, or an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, what have you. What we're going to show here today with using DocLIb and how we can manage those price lists. We can store them within a secure database, and we can analyze them in terms of price changes for secondary price lists that are actually received from that supplier, highlighting differences, items that didn't exist on the initial price list, changes in the pricing, things along those lines. Now, the workflow that I'm going to show you here this morning is not a production workflow. In other words, I do not foresee anybody actually utilizing this in a production environment. I've created this workflow really just to highlight some of the capabilities of DocLIb. And I want to make sure everybody's clear on that what you're seeing today is not what all DocLIb can do. As David mentioned in the presentation section, our workflow engine is configurable by user. So as you go through, if you need an additional step that I'm not actually showing in the workflow that I'll process today, that's certainly possible with DocLIb. You would just add that into your workflow step, and we would work with you to actually come up with what that would look like. The OCR capabilities that I'm going to show you today really takes things down to the line level, and it does it extremely efficiently. By line level, what I mean is, and you'll see this on the document itself, there's going to be a listing of 25, 50 specific items and their prices and their unit of measure. Using DocLIb's intelligent capture, we can scan and OCR, optical character recognition, those line items efficiently to be able to pull them from that particular document. So it eliminates the need for somebody to be just looking at the price list and comparing it to another one and actually trying to determine if there's differences between one price list and another. So with that, what I'd like to start off with is actually show you a quick demo here of DocLIb, just give you an overview. Let me just log on here. Now, one thing you'll notice, this is the main DocLIb screen, and I'm running it in a browser. DocLIb is 100% browser-based, and what that means is you can access it from anywhere, and there's no local software that needs to be installed on your laptop or desktop or what have you. Everything is completely browser-based. This is the main DocLIb screen, and we're basically organized in different folders, as you can see here in the top screen. Now, the documents themselves, as David mentioned, they're stored in a secure database, and that's that's on purpose. We store the documents, any type of document, any type of file, in the database, which gives us the ability to control security, version control, additional revisions, and also have a complete audit trail of a document, even to the level once the document is deleted or removed from the database, we still have a complete audit trail on that. So that gives our users the confidence that they know exactly what is coming into DocLIb. The security model is established with it, so there's no unauthorized access. You have complete version control, so if there's additional versions, you can see the previous versions on it, etc. Let me just show you what the documents look like. I'm going to click on the folders button here, and you can see it's organized in a series of folders that are basically dynamically created as documents are loaded into the database. If I go under the suppliers folder here, I'm going to go under ABC Supply. I'm going to see a list of PDF documents, which are basically demo invoices that we'll take a look at. If I click on one of them, you'll see the PDF itself. Here's the invoice. We can see it over here on the right-hand pane. Each document has a series of keywords which are used not only for searching but also for dynamically creating the subfolders for them. We have complete document control here, so you can see when it was actually added, how many times it was viewed, what have you. So again, the documents are not located on a file system. They're not on a hard drive. They're actually stored within a database. Now, once you have several hundred or several thousands, and we even have users who have several million documents within DocLIb, accessing the files via just navigating through the folders is not very efficient. That's where really search comes into play. What you see on the main screen here, there's a couple places that you can do searches, and there's several different searches that you can do. I'm going to do a search here for a supplier name called PR Newswire. And as I type, you can see we have type forward functionality, so you don't need to key in the entire value. I'm going to go ahead and do the search, and I have my search results screens here. So for that keyword, which is a supplier called PR Newswire, I have 12 documents that are stored within the database. Going left to right, I see the details on it, where it's stored, some of the keywords that are associated with it. And these keywords are actually dynamic links. So as you're doing a search, you can actually go down through and do drill down type searches. So if I click on this particular invoice number, I limit my search just to that record or any other record that would have that keyword associated with it. These icons here, the first one here, if I click on that, that'll take me to the document properties, which is the same screen that we saw when we looked at that previous supplier invoice. So the document here is on my right-hand pane. I have my keywords that are associated with it, and I have any revisions. There's only one revision on this. And also, by clicking the workflow, I can see the audit history that's associated with that particular workflow, what actually occurred to it, and how it was stored within the database. This is part of every document that processes through the workflow and gives you the visibility on actually what happened to the document to get it into the database. So that's a quick overview of DocLIb. What I'm going to do now, seeing that we don't have a ton of time, I'm going to take us right through the scenario of actually uploading customer price lists into the database. So let me just minimize DocLIb here. And I've got a couple of just sample documents here that we're going to be using here today. Let's take a look at one of them. This is what I'm calling the master price list, which you can see is just a PDF document that I created that has a handful of sample items with their descriptions, unit of measure, and pricing. Again, as a PDF document, I'm going to take this and I'm going to scan this into DocLIb using intelligent capture and OCR every one of those items. So let me close this out. And the way that's done is a concept that's actually called a hot folder. Now, a hot folder is actually a network drive that's configured in on your network where users can either scan or drag and drop files to be uploaded into the system. So I have a hot folder here that's basically called PL Master, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag and drop the master price list over into this folder. It'll take a second here, and you can see it disappeared. Actually, it's going to look at that. There's a process that's always looking for new files that come into those folders, and we'll process them through to go over into DocLIb. Now, there's one step that's required before we actually get the documents into DocLIb, and that's called the verification step. So what's actually occurring is our OCR engine is rendering the document. It's doing the line level OCR. It's pulling the specific data off of the document using the AutoFind technology that David mentioned in the presentation, and it will basically play it back in case there's any problems or errors that we have, with that particular document that a human would need to intervene. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here's the verification station. So I'm just going to click over here. I'm going to select a batch. First one there. There's my master price list. I'm going to go ahead and bring this in. Now, as I bring this in, over here on my left-hand pane, I can see, first thing it's prompting me for is supplier name. And as I click on that, you can see it highlights where it actually pulled the supplier name from. As David mentioned, using the AutoFind functionality, if this was the first time that I scanned in a price list for a vendor and the intelligent capture did not recognize it, I would simply find the supplier name on the document, I would click on it, and it would remember it for the next time that it processes it through. So there's no need for sample pages or things along those lines that you have to scan ahead of time. Now the price list number, this is an input field, and just for the demo purposes, just so we know what's going on, I'm just going to assign it just a unique number so we know what's the difference between a master and a secondary. So I just manually keyed that in. You can input data using the verification station for data that's not actually contained on the price list. Now, a little further down, I actually have defined a table here, which is all of our items. So if we just take a look at this, you see how this highlights. So it's pulling item numbers, unit of measures, and the price for each one of the items that's in the group. So when you're actually setting this up, you would actually define the table and each one of the data elements that you want to pull out, and it will remember it and auto-find it for the next time through. So to move this over into DocLIb, what I would do is actually click the check mark here to send the document over to DocLIb. Once I click that, you see I actually have an error here. This batch contains low confidence characters. Please run the verification operation. What that is telling me is that some of these item numbers that it pulled from the document, it's not confident that it read it correctly. So it's going to take me through those characters that it wasn't confident on. So what I'll do is I'll just hit a hotkey here, and it's going to take me through which ones these actually are. So it'll show what it believed the item number is for that, and just wants me to confirm or change what that value is. And as you can see, zeros versus O's, or within the OCR world, if you have any background with that is a common discrepancy between that. So it wants to make sure that this is indeed a zero. I'll confirm that. Same sort of thing with this item number. And now we come to an actual problem here. If you look, it read this particular item number and it thinks this value is a 5, but in reality it's an S. So I want to go ahead and manually override that. Oop, hang on a second. So manually override that to make sure that the item number is correct. Again, it's only highlighting those that it had a problem with, and you can so you're not actually going through each and every item. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that everything looks okay, and I'll go ahead and send that off to the database. Okay, so what's actually going to occur here, and this will take a minute or so to actually process and go through it through DocLIb. It's going to send that master price list over into DocLIb, and we actually added some functionality where not only are we just going to store the document with the keywords in the database, we're actually going to be creating a CSV or an Excel file for those items as well. So we can actually utilize that data and that we pulled from the document via the OCR to use for every which way that you want to. In this example, what I'm doing here, we're showing it as a CSV file, but we can create XML. We can create any type of document, again using the workflow. So let me pull up DocLIb here, and we'll just wait for it to come into the folder. So I'm going to click under Folders. I'm going to click under Priceless. And you can see I've configured my subfolders here. I have master and secondary under here, picks. And there we see we actually have the document itself. So if I click on the document, there's my price list that I uploaded. It assigned some keywords to it. Went through. If I click on the workflow, you can see it went through, it was submitted, it created a CSV file, then it added over into DocLIb. Let's take a look at see what the CSV file looks like. So if we just click on this, it'll open it up. And here, again, this is just something we did just to show you the capabilities of DocLIb, where not only are we just storing the documents, we're actually creating a file that you could upload into a different system. You could do what have you, and whatever you want with it. So it's going to assign or create this file just via the items, unit of measures, and prices. Okay, so the master price list is stored within the database, and in my example, we're actually going to utilize that as the source document. So, the scenario that I'm following now is I've stored the master price list. This is a pricing that we agreed with the supplier, but now we're getting a secondary price list or a changed price list from that supplier, and we want to analyze that compared to the master. So if I take a look at my secondary price list, you can see it looks the same. It's the same as the other one, but basically says it's revised. It has different items on it. It has different pricing, what have you. So what I'll do here is I'm going to scan that over into a different hot folder, or drag and drop it to a different hot folder. I'm going to follow the same process that we did with the master price list. So that document was loaded over into the hot folder. The system picked it up. It's now going through rendering it and processing it, and it'll display it to me in the verification step as we saw with the master price list. So if I go to my verification station, take a look, and there it is. There's the secondary price list. So as I come down through here, again, it found the supplier name. I'm going to assign in a price list number. Let's say ABC1234. Again, same sort of scenario. We have our different items, the unit of measure, what have you. If I click to go ahead and move this to DocLIb, again, there's some low confidence characters, so I'm going to need to verify those. It'll go through just to make sure these are okay. There's my S versus the 5, so I'll change that to an S. Click confirm, and off it goes into, whoops, let me actually confirm it. And off it goes into DocLIb. Now, this particular document, as we mentioned, what you saw in the actual presentation, it's going to go into a more elaborate workflow that I've created for it. And before we actually start processing that document, let's take a second here. I'm going to go into the DocLIb setup and actually take a look at that workflow so we can understand exactly what's going on. So this is the sample workflow that I set up for our secondary price lists. And as I mentioned to begin with, this I don't expect this to be a production level price list, but gives you a good idea of the functionality and what we can do with DocLIb. So just taking a second here to see what actually is going on. Very first node that we have here says link master price list and validate items. So that's actually a two-step node. So what it's going to do is going to, for that secondary price list, it's going to go look in DocLIb and it's going to link up that master price list that I already scanned that will be used as a supporting document, and I'll show you exactly how it works. And it'll then go through and actually validate the items to make sure all of the items that are on the secondary price list are also on the master price list. If they're not, what it'll do, it'll reject it, and it's going to send it to a user queue to actually tell them these are the invalid items, and the user needs to go through what are they going to do with it. If they reject it, stops the process, saves the document to a reject folder within DocLIb, and completes the process. We're basically saying we're not accepting this price list change. If they approve it, they're going to go through and they're going to remove any of the invalid items. They'll go ahead and approve, and it'll go through, it'll revalidate the items and go to the next step. The next step is determine pricing discrepancy. So with the prices that were on the master compared to the secondary, it's going to analyze and show any differences on there. If it does find a difference, it's going to route it over to that user queue, tell them which of the items are different, and ask them to actually approve or reject it. If they reject it, again, it'll go to the reject database. If they approve it, it's going to go here to this node, where it's actually going to generate an email telling somebody that the secondary price list was approved and it's stored over within the database. We utilize email quite a bit to within DocLIb and DocLIb workflow to notify people of things that actually occur. New documents coming in, approvals that are needed, late approvals, any type of event that's occurring within the workflow. We can use the email notification functionality with DocLIb to let somebody know what's going on. So let me go ahead and close this out, and I'm going to jump back over into DocLIb, and I'm going to go into my workflow queue. And what I should see here is that this is a list of documents that are currently in my workflow queue. I'm logged in as a user ID Pix, and I can see the very first one here is a workflow called PL check with an ID. If I click on this, what I'm going to see up on this top frame here, I'll see here's my secondary price list. Down here, I actually see all of the items again, and one of them, if you see here, I have a message saying this is an invalid item. What that is telling me is that this item, UU7676, is on the secondary price list, but not on the master. If you also notice down here on the left-hand frame, I've linked up the master price list so I can see those all within the same queue. So if I wanted to take a look at the master, here's my master price list there. It's just there as a reference point. And here, this is my actual secondary. So what I'm going to do for our demo here today, if you notice I have a checkbox here, I'm going to go ahead and remove that item from my price list. So I'm going to say remove UU7676, not remover, remove. Click approve, and I'm going to move it through the next step of the process. Now, if you remember, we looked at the workflow within the setup module, and the next step after I approved it is going to circle back around, revalidate the items, and then send it to the next node. Now, I don't have to go to the setup to actually determine and see what the workflow is. If you look here, I have a link here to take a look at my workflow diagram. So if I just click on this, then go ahead and open it, you can see I just have a picture of what that workflow is. So we went through this step already. We validated the items. It was rejected. It came back through. I approved it after removing one of them. So now it should come over here to determine any pricing discrepancies. To check to see what's going on, at any point I can click this workflow status, and it shows me exactly what occurred with this particular item. Here on this right-hand pane, I have just kind of a red, yellow, green visual representation of the workflow and where it actually exists. And over here on the right side, from oldest to newest, I can see exactly what was occurring. So the workflow was submitted, it added some supporting documents, it found an invalid item. I went through and removed it. It came through and basically said, hey, I found price variances on the secondary price list, so a user needs to do something about that. So if I click on the document again, what I'll see is a very similar frame, but a little different this time than before. Again, I have the document itself. If I come down here, I see the differences of the pricing. So this item, there's a price mismatch. That item, there's a price mismatch. The third item is a price mismatch. So out of those, I don't know, 25, 30 items that I'm doing in my sample, it isolated and found the price differences between one document and the other very quickly, very structured, and showed me exactly what what the changes are. I'm going to go through for a demo here, and I'll say pricing changes are okay. I'm going to click approve, click submit, and it's going to move it again through through the next step within the process, which would be to actually send an email notification notifying somebody. In this case, it's going to be my email address that that's okay. So it's going to take a second to actually do this. What actually is occurring is we have a workflow processing engine that's running behind the scenes. So every minute it wakes up, it goes through, takes a look at all the documents that are in the workflow and moves it from one node to the next. We can see that actually happening here as we go through. Well, actually, as I continually click this, once the processor wakes up, processes it, we'll see it actually complete complete the workflow entirely. Now, I'm doing this as part of our demo here today, so you can actually see what's occurring. Typically, somebody wouldn't you'd just be sitting and watching the workflow go through. That happens behind the scenes. While we're waiting on it, I'll pull up the diagram one more time just so we can see it. Again, we determined pricing discrepancies. It was rejected. We went through and we approved it, and we're waiting for an email to come through and then it to be saved to the database. There we go. So it went through, sent an email to rjr@pix.com. I pull this up. Here we go. This is the actual email that was sent from workflow@pix.com to my email address. And if you notice, in the body of the email, it said my price list number, ABC1234 from supplier Pix, has been reviewed and approved. The documents itself is added to DocLIb. If I come over to my folders and under the price list, I can then see under the secondary price list, there's the document itself. By clicking on it, I can see it, my keywords that are associated with it, and my workflow history. Okay, so that concludes our demo portion on this today. I'm going to switch this back over to Dave to actually conclude our time here today. I appreciate everybody's attention and turn it back over to Dave. Dave, I think you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
Yes, that always helps. Sorry about that. Thanks so much, everyone, and thanks, Rich, for that demo on the price list upload. I'll just conclude here, leaving my name up, an email, and a phone number. And again, just kind of reiterate, certainly appreciate your feedback. Any questions or thoughts that you have, we'll certainly answer those questions and share it with the group. And look forward to speaking with you and your companies and providing our DocLIb software and services as needed, and look forward to further engagement with you. So thanks so much for attending this morning, and you all have a great day. Bye-bye.